why is, but now that you're looking at them, you go, oh, yes. Now
Because some didn't apply when you were a kid, like, don't covet a neighbor's wife, like, what does that mean? When you're a child, you know?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
don't kill somebody, okay?
Yeah.
And you remember that because it's more pronounced, like, don't kill somebody,
But it's still in your mind. I mean, because when you're reminded of it, you say, oh yeah, I remember that one. So you had that in there,
I suppose, yeah. Violent.
but at a sudden, asking of the question, you weren't able to recall all of them at once right now. That's, we all know that. Our memory, we don't remember everything that we remember on the spot. We have to have the right stimulus or something, and that will bring it up. Like if I click my heels together and I'm wearing ruby slippers, what am I saying? No place like home, right? So, you got odd stimuli and you get a response. What did you have for breakfast this morning? You don't have to say, but you remember. What did you have to celebrate your last birthday? Did you have cake? What kind of cake was it? Did you have candles? Did you light the curtains on fire? Some things you'll remember, right? They're highlights, right? But if I ask the question, well, I think part of the problem is the Ten Commandments is a technical kind of issue, and the one commandment doesn't lead naturally into the next one. If I ask, how many folks have seen the movie The Lion King? Everyone? How did Mufasa die?
Or pushed off a cliff.
A series of events.
Can you remember the whole,
Oh, yeah.
whole thing? So basically Mufasa died because Mufasa didn't move Fasa. But I mean, you remember that whole thing. And that's way more complex than the Ten Commandments, I think. And yet do you remember the music? Dum, dum, as the herd of canoes or whatever the animals were. Wildebeest. Were charging down the valley, right? Simba's hopping around. Dad! Dad! Remember it? Yes? Now that is a narrative. Plus it's visual, and the visual cortex is the largest part of our brains, I understand, right? So if you think of it, boy, narrative is really a significant way for us to remember something. By the way, I'm going to try to present the course as a narrative. We've got to now, right? And why is that important, and so on. So narratives seem to be a way for us to remember stuff. Technical information is difficult. It seems like the only way to remember technical information is rote learning. Or using little, mnemonic devices, right? So that you, like a song or something that helps you remember, if I ask, when did Columbus discover America, in the Gulf of America? Sorry. What year?
1492.
1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? Rhyming, poetry makes that pretty helpful, right? It seems like oral traditions were the earliest ways that we passed on stories. Locally, I don't know if any of you are, what's the right expression, native Alaskans, as opposed to native to Alaska, or however we describe it. I've had the pleasure of being in villages, where they did songs and things, and did stories. Those are oral traditions. It's interesting, one of the translators that talked about the difficulties of taking the elders' stories and putting them down in a book form is you have to invent grammar. You have to end the sentence. You have to add periods or commas and things that are not there in the story. So that's kind of interesting. In a sense, when did that happen? One of my friends who's passed away was a lawyer here in town, was actually the state attorney general for the Egan administration, John Havelock. But he passed away, but his dad was Eric Havelock. And his dad, Eric, was a philosophy professor at Harvard. Started off in Toronto, and he was part of what's called the Toronto School. And one of the famous lines you get from the Toronto School is, "The media is the message." So when you put kids in front of TV to watch Sesame Street, right? I almost said Sesamstrasse. At the time, my kids were growing up, we were in Berlin, so we were watching German TV. But Sesame Street, right? So, you're learning Abierto, Cerrado, stuff like that, from the TV. But what they pointed out was the main thing you're teaching your children by watching those shows is how to watch TV. You're immersing them in this media, right? The big conversation today is, what are you getting out of TikTok? Are we getting a lot of young people, in a sense, addicted to TikTok, to short little videos? How long are the videos on TikTok?
Varies.
It's not just kids. I have an 85-year-old friend who watches TikTok all day. It's keeping him alive, so I'm okay with that. That's good. Yeah, it's something interesting to do. So that's a different medium. I played golf last night. 2 rounds. I used the tropical golf course and then the African golf course. I've got 4 that I could use. I have an Oculus or Meta Quest, right? I put on, I sit my, stand in my living room playing golf. It's great. Every once in a while I wonder, when I take the Oculus off, I see these green sparkles, and I'm wondering, hey, what's this doing to my eyesight? What's this doing to my brain? I'm having a ball though, and ever since I bought the game for $14.49, it's been like 3 years, and I'm still playing the golf game. If you play real golf, and while I was in the Army, of course, you had to play golf. Whenever the Army would take over a place, the first thing it would do is build a golf course. Right? So Berlin had a golf course. Fort Meade, I was at Fort Meade. No such agency. For 4.5 years. NSA, I spent 3 years translating from German to Russian there. And then I taught, along with the folks that eventually ended up making Dragon Speak. We taught the Cray computer how to do my job, so I was out of work. Which was a good thing, because that was really boring after a while. But I got lost. what was I talking about?
Golf.
Golf, yeah, the median of the Oculus. Interesting thing is, a lot of people are calling the virtual reality the fifth dimension. Have you heard that? I don't know if that's popular usage yet or not. Kind of interesting. By the way, there's a fascinating philosopher, David Chalmers, who's very concerned about the virtual world and what we can make of it. But back to Havelock and others of the Toronto School, they argue, with regard to Greek intellectual history, that the muse learns to write. So theoretically, this is a theory, when we get to the beginnings of what we call philosophy, which we traditionally associate with Socrates or Plato. Socrates is first, Plato was his student, right? That Plato's the first one to begin writing philosophy, and he writes in prose. And prior to that, the Greeks taught one another through oral stories, the same as our local native villages traditionally would do. The Greeks did. You're probably familiar with some of the movies, at least, if not the poems themselves. For example, Odysseus or the Odyssey, right? I just watched Voldemort shooting everybody with a bow and arrow just the other night. It's not really Voldemort, he's a cardinal. No, I mean, he's, gosh, what, sorry, it's a squirrel. I've got all these connections between, you know, his brother was Martin Luther in the movie Luther, you know, so, you know, as a Roman Catholic watching Voldemort's brother play Luther, I thought that was kind of fitting, you know. Martin Luther, he was a theologian in the Middle Ages. Okay. Reformer. Started Lutheranism, etc. In any case, you have this oral tradition, the Iliad, which the main character in the Iliad is Brad Pitt. No, I mean Achilles, right? Achilles is the main character. Achilles means no honor. Right? Is not, like atom means uncuttable, so the prefix a means not, and cles is essentially honor, right? Heracles, the glory of Hera, but Achilles, we say, has no honor. That's his name. How did that happen? It happened in the middle of the story. Because they were fighting the Trojans, and Achilles ended up with a prize, and a lot of them had prizes. And they brought their prize back to their tent, and Agamemnon had a prize, and Agamemnon was the leader, right, the king. By the way, means not, and gametes, no gametes. So I think of Agamemnon's name as a Greek joke. It means, well, I'll let you figure it out. Right? No gametes. Right? Dickless, basically, I suppose. I don't know. What were the Greeks thinking? But he was an idiot, right? Of course, it wouldn't be the first time the leader was an idiot, right? You know, that happened. In any case, Agamemnon had a prize. And the prize belonged, or was the daughter, to the priest of the Trojans. And the Trojan priest came stomping out. He was furious that his daughter had been captured. And he said, "The gods are upset with you." You have to give her back. And Agamemnon believed it and gave her back. And now he's upset because he doesn't have a prize and he's the king. So his brother Menelaus says, well, you're the king. Take whatever prize you want. So what the heck did he do? He goes to Achilles' tent and he takes Perseus, who's Achilles' prize. Perseus